Hello, and happy Pride Month! It's Pride Month! This is the month where we celebrate the Stonewall Rebellion, but not just by looking back at it and going, isn't it wonderful what the people did back in the day, but through actions where we celebrate and work towards making the world better for LGBTQIA plus people everywhere, in whatever ways we're capable of doing. Jackson Bird did a wonderful video where he basically equated this to Queer New Year's Day, where we make those resolutions all over again. We look at ourselves and say, what have I done for the community and what can I do better? And since we're doing the Pride and Prejudice anthology this year, I thought I would talk about how to write queer characters. So let's get right into that, shall we? Hello, my chart leaders, and welcome back to my channel, and hello to all the new people that may or may not be here. Oh my goodness, Pride Month and queer characters. It's been quite a thing. But before I go on, I just want to say, if I'm a lot brighter, hopefully you'll like this. Hopefully this looks better. I fixed my light box, so I have a lot more light coming this way, so hopefully that looks good. I am still experimenting with the lighting. Hopefully it's looking good. Hopefully it's looking better. Let me know what you think down in the comments, because I'm trying. I'm trying really hard. So, queer characters. Should you have them? If you're not queer, should you write them? And how do that? So I'm going to answer the second question first. If you are heterosexual, should you write queer characters?
Yes.
Yes, you should. You should include queer characters and characters of any minority that you are not, that you feel comfortable writing in any of your fiction where it is appropriate and where they are not just simply token characters. There are a lot of ways that you can include queer characters into your stories. While I am a huge proponent of own voices fiction, that matters most when we are dealing with traditionally published fiction. If you are an independent writer, I personally, and take that with the biggest grain of salt, do not find it problematic to have people that are not part of the community to write stories from our point of view, especially if they're being respectful and paying attention to who we actually are as people. Which gets me to the first rule. And I'm not going to be numbering these. I'm probably going to say numbers and letters and all kinds of things to try to give this some semblance of order, but they really don't have a priority like that, so I'm going to try not to do that, but the first and primary rule is do not include queer characters as merely token characters so that you can tick some kind of woke box. These characters are easy to see. They're easy to pick out. Number one, they're usually alone.
Yeah.
Queer people don't often move through the world alone. It's why we joke around about gaydar so much. We walk into a room and we hunt each other down. We try to find out who here is one of us, so that we know where safety lies, so that we know where we can go should we need help, and, talk to other people that are like us. It is extremely rare to be the only queer person in a friend group, or to not have your straight friend group over here and your queer friend group over there. Unfortunately, that does happen. It's best if we can mix them, of course, but, it does happen. But very rarely are you the only queer in the village. That's kind of a trope from back when it was much more difficult to come out of the closet, and while it may or may not be true, depending on how rural or conservative the area is in which your story takes place, it really stands out when there really is only one gay in the village, because there's usually more of us, and we usually know who each other are. Also, don't make all of us eunuchs. This is a big problem in a lot of fiction where the gay character exists solely to make the straight character's life better. This is also true of trans characters and cis counterparts. I see this a lot. We're not angels. We're not just here to make straight people's lives better. If the only purpose of the queer character in your story is to be some kind of a subversion or twist on the manic pixie girl, maybe think about giving that character a bit more life, a bit more internal monologue, a bit more, anything, to make them stand out as more of an individual character. The other part of not making them eunuchs, you don't have to go into detail about their sex life because, yes, it is true. Queer people are more than just who we like, love, and do the naughties with, or don't do the naughties with, however the case may be. But we're not all celibate. There's a weird thing that I see in a lot of fiction where everybody has a boyfriend or a girlfriend except for the queer character. And while that may be the point of the story, maybe you're writing a queer romance and they're looking for the person of their dreams, well, they would at least be looking, unless, of course, they're ace arrow, at which point, please make them explicitly so. This gets to the next rule of writing queer characters. Don't erase bisexuality, pansexuality, asexuality, and aromanticism, or demisexuals, or demiromantics for that matter. All of these people exist, and they're valid, and their stories should be told, but they should be explicitly told. If a character goes through your entire story and never shows romantic interest in anyone else, we may assume that they are aro, but it would be better if you said so. Make it explicit in some way, shape, or form. Have them wear the black ring. There are a lot of things that you can do, especially in contemporary romance or contemporary fiction, to highlight the fact that these characters exist. And while there may be some tension in both the heterosexual and the queer community over a bi or pan person in various kinds of relationships, that is true, that is relatable, that is a thing that does happen. Make sure that you are clear in your narrative that a bi person who is in a different gender relationship is not suddenly straight, or vice versa. That's not how that works. A bi person or a pan person is still bi or pan, regardless of who they're with. I don't know what exactly people think happens in our heads when we meet somebody and fall in love. You don't stop noticing that Elliot Page is cute. You still notice. That brings me to another big bugaboo. Polyamory is not cheating. There is cheating in polyamory because open relationships are open in that they have rules, and if you violate those rules or if you hide your partner from your other partners, that's cheating. But most polyamorous relationships establish their rules up front, and then anything not according to those rules is either discussed or a form of cheating when those rules are violated. That's how that works. They're actually quite civilized arrangements. They really are. Don't use polyamory as a way to justify cheating. That's not how that works. That's not how that works at all. Do you have to include the struggle? It depends on how comfortable you feel in writing the struggle. Look, I'm 44 years old. I have been through a lot. I have been queer bashed. I have been discriminated against. I've been fired for being gay. Yeah. I've had all of it happen. And that's one of the things that's made me a very out and vocal critic of the world and the way that it is, because it is not just to treat people this way. If you don't feel comfortable writing that kind of conflict, it's okay. It's okay. Don't feel like you have to include the struggle, but understand that the characters are going to be living with those fears, with those concerns over whether or not their boss, depending on where they live, their landlord, can just throw them out without any justification whatsoever other than the fact that they are LGBTQ+. Because yeah, that happens. Which, in a way, maybe should have been the way I opened this video. Marriage equality did not bring equality. In the vast majority of states in the United States, it is still legal to be fired for being queer. You can be kicked out of your home for being queer. In the state that I live in, you could technically have your children taken away from you for being queer, and you definitely cannot adopt. All of those things are still true. And that doesn't even include the waves of anti-trans legislation that are trying to be passed right now, and in some places have been passed and put into law. Discrimination did not go away because we finally got the right to get married. I wish that were true. That would have been amazing and wonderful, but it didn't. Marriage was unfortunately the moonshot, which caused us to forget that we don't know very much about living in orbit, so maybe we should figure that out. Yeah, discrimination is still out there. It is still real, and in a lot of places, it is still legal to discriminate against queer people. In fact, in several states, they're trying to make it legal to deny health care to queer people. In other words, an EMT could find a trans person in need of medical intervention and say, nope, against my sincerely held beliefs, and not treat them. Those laws are being proposed right now, and that's a scary place to live in. It's actually a gray area whether or not they can use those arguments because, well, the few court cases that have been brought have not made it all the way to the Supreme Court yet, and we have no idea how this conservative Supreme Court is going to rule on them. While there's a lot to be proud of, while there's a lot to celebrate, there's also a lot to be fearful of in the queer community. And that pervasive fear of what could be taken from us next, how will people treat us, how will people tear us down, is one of the reasons why we tend to live each day as if it's our last. For tomorrow, the mob could come for us and we could truly die. When you look at the rates of trans people being killed, especially trans people of color, it's horrifying. So bear all of that in mind. While, yes, we often have a very festive look at the world because, well, when you're living in a world that hates you, you have two choices. You can either succumb to the hate, or you can dance defiantly and thumb your nose at it. More often than not, we choose the latter. Now, I wish there was some magic formula I could give you to get into the head of a queer person and help you understand them better. That way you could write them better. And while it is not fair to say that gay men act like straight men, only with the object of their affection not being women, that's not entirely true. And it's not true for a lot of different reasons, but the one that you should focus on understanding most if you're going to include queer characters in your fiction is culture. Gay men's culture is many and varied and beautiful, from twink culture to the gym bunnies to the bear culture to the leather daddies. There's a lot of variety in there, and we haven't even talked about some of the more risque things like puppies. Though I'm sure more people know about that now thanks to all the controversy that they've been embroiled in, as far as whether or not they should be allowed at Pride. And it's also important to understand that kink and sexuality are related, but they're not the same thing. But they are related. And so a lot of that type of culture is going to really inflect on the type of character that you're writing. If you're writing a drag queen who is more of a pageant queen, or a circuit queen, or a ball queen, those things are very, very different. Balls are a very specific type of drag, and not only type of drag, but presentation and the type of preparations that you have to go through to be ready for such an extravagant event. The circuits exist because, well, if you can start making a living as a drag queen, get a name for yourself, you can go out and tour. And there are a lot of touring queens. And then there are the pageants. Yeah, there are the pageants. Look into the royal court, which I'm hoping still exists after last year, where they literally have pageants to find the best local, regional, all the way up to national. I believe the court now is international drag queens. That really is a thing. And some people just do it for fun and aren't into being on stage. So even a drag character, there's a lot of variety in the community. Just doing it for the sheer joy of dressing that way, because I didn't know what non-binary was. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions. We are not a monolith any more than any other group is a monolith. And so dig in, learn more about the subcultures and the cultures that your characters may be a part of. Who knows, you may find something that may be amazingly insightful for your story and make you really want to tell more elaborate stories about them. There's a lot of things that you can say about queer people that aren't just who they fall in love with or not, and who they want to do the naughties with or not, or how they present their gender. Yeah, there's a lot here. And I wish I could give you just that simple, straightforward, hey, and just do this. Because it would make everyone's life a lot easier. But you know what? Queer people are people too, and we are complex. We are a broad gamut of people who share some things in common, mostly the struggle for civil rights. So I hope that was helpful. I know I didn't talk much about trans and non-binary people in this episode. I'm actually going to do that in next week's video. And I'm going to focus more in on the non-binary experience because as an NB, I have more experience with that. But we're going to talk about being genderqueer and all of that next week. So hopefully that will be helpful. And hopefully this one was. If you have any other questions, don't be afraid to ask them, but be respectful down in the comments, and I'll either answer down in the comments or I will make further supplementary videos. All right? All right. So yeah, Pride Month. What are you doing to celebrate Pride? Let me know down in the comments, and remember that this world is a nightmare hellscape that is not going to get any better unless we do something to actively make it better. So, only we can stand up to Asian hate. We can remind the idiots who refuse to believe that Black Lives Matter, that Black Lives Matter, that Black trans lives matter, and that trans identities are magic. So if you've made it this far in the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. I stream twice a week on YouTube on Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. May you have the courage to ride your dreams into reality. And don't forget to have the fun. Bye.